Thank you so much for joining in today. And thank you for taking the time off your day to be here with us today. Fantastic turn up. So, again, thank you very much for being here and for making time. We really appreciate it. And with that, I welcome you to today's webinar, where we'll be talking about how you can enforce strong passwords in your organization with the password policy enforcer. So a lot of exciting stuff happening today. Looking forward to it for going through with this with you all. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to quickly ensure that I'm audible and the display is clear. So if you guys would please use the chat box and let me know if everything is okay, then we can go ahead and get this started. All right, Jared says, sounds great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jared, Peter, Roy, and Gregory. Welcome, welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for letting me know so we can get this kick started. Now, passwords are a sensitive subject. So what I've done today is I've tried to make this presentation light and short, and I've tried to keep it crisp. So here's hoping you guys enjoy it and have a good time. Now, meanwhile, if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box like you just did right now, and I'll be happy to answer them as and when I can. And then if I cannot during the session, then towards the end, we'll take some time and get those questions answered for you. So don't worry if you don't hear from me. We'll towards the end, we'll have a good Q&A session and get this sorted out as well. All right, so with that, going into today's agenda. That's our agenda for today. We'll be talking a little bit about the weak passwords, how you can find them, get rid of them, and then once you have the weak passwords out of your organization, we'll be talking about how we can go forward and set up strong passwords which are secure and will help you stay protected. And then we'll talk a little bit about password policy enforcer. It's the tool that we'll be using to set new passwords, strong passwords. And this tool is a brilliant one. You'll see the reason why I say that in a bit as we go through that. It does a lot of things and it does it well. So with that, let's jump right in. I want to start off with facts, right? Why do we end up with weak passwords? Because like it says here, nobody likes password, and we just do the bare minimum, to set a password, and all we want is a password. We don't care how strong or how weak it is. All we want is a password. And then these things happen. Security incidents happen because there are folks out there who are, whose only job is to get into your network, get you to the ground, right? So there are a lot of security incidents happening around it just because you have new password. And I'm not kidding. And these numbers are not from me. These numbers are from Microsoft. I'm not sure how many of you guys were in the Ignite event, the Microsoft Ignite event that happened recently. I had the opportunity to be there, and this is a screen grab from the event straight from Microsoft. So this is not me, this is all Microsoft. They say that 81%, can you believe that, of all the hacking related breaches that happen over stolen or weak passwords. So I guess that explains how important our passwords are when it comes to your environment. And then organizations spend about 20% of their support costs on forgotten passwords. So today's session will be around passwords. We can set up strong passwords, get rid of the old passwords or the weak passwords. With that, moving on. What can we do about weak passwords, right? I can for a fact tell you that in every organization, there are weak passwords. It's just a matter of, finding out who these folks are and getting rid of, these users or these passwords. these weak passwords that we do not want, right? So, I mean, as an administrator or a help desk employee, I would know what you deal or what you do with the folks who use weak passwords. I'm pretty sure I have a good idea with that. So with that, I want to introduce you to our solution, what I suggest or recommend strongly to get rid of weak passwords. And that would be our weak password users reporting tool. Now, the best part about this tool is that it's a free tool, right? It is a very simple tool to use. I'll show you the tool in a minute, and you'll see how simple it is to use the tool and to get it working. So with that, let me quickly take you to our setup that we have, and I'll show you how you can find this weak tool that we've been talking about. So first thing you want to do is you can do this, as a matter of fact, you can do this right now. You can go to manageengine.com, right? That will get you here. And from there, you go to products, and under products, under products, right here, you see where it says related free tools. All you gotta do is click on it, and that should take you to our free tool page. Now, these are a few excellent free tools that can help you handle different parts. That can help in handle different requirements per se. The one that we'll be focusing on today, though, is the one here at the bottom, which is the weak password users report tool, right? So, tool comes up, you click on it, and that would take you right here, where you can read a little bit about the tool and even get this downloaded. Now, interface-wise, this is a very simple tool, which is very easy to use. So all you have to do is click on the download page, which will get you down there. And then you download it and get this installed. Now, I have done that for you. I've done that and I've installed that for you. And let me show you the tool and how this looks and the other information about the tool. So it is right here. All you have to do is double click on it, and it will open up the free tool. And once you are here, the tool that we are looking for today is the weak password reports. It's under AD users reports. All these are tools that can help you with your AD requirements. The one we'll be focusing on, though, today is the weak password report. So all you have to do is click on it, and the weak password users tool kicks open. And it just needs a bunch of information to do what it does best, right? So it will ask you for your domain name. You put that in there. And then when you do that and you skip over to the domain controller, it will list out all your domain controllers, and all you have to do is choose the one that you want to work with. I'll be choosing that one right there. The next thing you want to do is give it some credentials so it can do its job. I'm going to go ahead, and it's better if you give it a domain admin credential so it has the ability to do what it does. So the username is in. I'm going to type in the password, and then all you have to do is hit generate. When you do that, and by the way, how this works is it compares the hash value for your password in the Active Directory with the text file this has. Now, this tool, this has a text file. I'll show that to you right now. So it's in there, and let me see if I can find it for you. There's it. So this has this thing has about this comes preloaded with about 100,000 words that are some of it are commonly used passwords. Some of it are passwords that have been cracked previously. Passwords that are weak, passwords that should not be used. So it's combination of all those things, and this has been put in here. All those words, all those passwords that are bad for you are put in here into this text file. And the way it works is it compares these passwords with the hash value of your passwords in the Active Directory, and that way sniffs out the weak passwords. And then at the end of it, when it is done, it is going to give you a report right here with all the folks that have or who have weak passwords. Now, so with that, once it generates, I'm pretty sure we do not have any users with weak passwords on your domain, but I'm just going to go ahead and hit generate, see if by any chance someone has decided to keep a weak passwords. And thankfully, we do not have any users with weak passwords. So thank God for that. But if your organization has users who have weak passwords, and unless you're consciously aware of not getting yourself into a weak password, chances are you will find many users with weak passwords. So that list will be here. There will be a bunch of users here with the weak password, and this tool will also give you an option to export this list, right? So you can click on it, and they will give you an option to export this list, and then you have the list of users with the weak password. So with that, you're already half safe. You know what you're dealing with. You know there are users in your organization with weak passwords that you need to take care of. So that is done. Then all you have to do is, have these users change their passwords to something secure, and that should take care of the weak passwords in your organization. And then you can, periodically run this report and fish out users with weak passwords and take care of that issue that way. But that's one way to go about it. Another way to go about it is why let the users set a weak password? Why not stop them right there so you don't need the tool, right? I mean, get rid of the users or get rid of the weak passwords, or even better, stop them setting weak passwords. So what can you do about it? That's where we get into the second part of the webinar today. That's where the password policy enforcer comes in. Now, the password policy enforcer is a feature that comes with the product called ADSelfService Plus. Now, ADSelfService Plus is essentially a web-based user or password management tool that you guys can use to give your users the ability to reset their password, unlock their account, basically take care of all their self-service needs without calling the help desk. It's not just a tool that does that. It does a lot more, like a single sign-on, password sync, and whatnot. And this is one of the features that it does and does well. I'll show you the interface and the tool in a second. For that, I'll have to drag you back to the remote desktop. Let me close this out. So guys, before I head out of here, I want to make sure again that this is a great tool that helps you snip out the weak passwords in your domain. So please take advantage of the free tool and get rid of the users with weak passwords, or rather get rid of the weak passwords. That's what I meant. So with that, our requirement for this is done. Closing out and getting back to ADSelfService Plus, which is right here. Now, like we talked about, ADSelfService Plus does a lot of things. I'll show that in a second. This is the admin page. This is where you would log in as the admin, get in there and get a lot of good stuff done. So like we talked about, if you get on here, apart from the usual, which is the reset password, unlock account, changing the password, letting users update their own information. It does a lot of more things, like I talked about. So for a single sign-on, we have this is also a single sign-on and a password sync solution. For the password sync, we have about 15 applications here, which when integrated with ADSelfService Plus, imagine this, right? You have these bunch of tools that you use in your organization on a day-to-day basis, and eventually you mix up these passwords. So how about you integrate them with ADSelfService Plus, and if by chance you forget your password and you have to reset it or you change your password, how does it sound when you change the password for your AD account and every tool that's integrated with it gets that same password? How easy will your life be when you have the same password for everything, right? I mean, everything that's integrated with it. Maybe you have Google Apps that you use, Service now, anything at all. I mean, anything that you use with uh, for your work, you can integrate that with AD Self-Service Plus. And when you change your password for AD Self-Service Plus, it goes around and changes the password for everything else. Now, with that, I think it's time to take a question. Somebody has a question here. Let's see what it says. Okay, that's Dave. And Dave's asking, is it a wise choice to set one password to all the applications that I own? What if I'm hacked? Oh, okay. Well, that's a good question, David. I mean, yeah, I imagine that you have one password, you have one password for everything, and if your AD account is hacked, so goes everything, is what you think, right? But that's not actually true, or we have a solution for that, right? Now, these are called multi-factor authentications. We have tons of multi-factor authenticators that you can use. This is how it works. So let's say you have one of these guys set up, right? Verification code, for example. Let's say you have set up a multi-factor option to send a verification code to your cell phone. And let's say your password is hacked and the user or the hacker gets through to the first page, or from the first page, he finds your password and he puts in the password. You know what happens next, Dave? He's not going any further, right? I hope this doesn't happen to you, but in chance it does, he's not, and you have this multi-factor authentication set up, he's not going any further. The next thing he would have to do is get the verification code that's sent to your phone. And unless he provides it, he's not going any further. So trust me when I say all your applications are safe, even with the same password. And I hope that clears it up, Dave. Dave says, thank you. Thank you, Dave. All right, so where are we? Password policy enforcer. All right, so we talked about weak passwords, and then from there we drifted to why even allow weak passwords when you can have stronger, better passwords. Why take the risk? And you're right, and this will help you do exactly that, right? This is how it works. Now you have your default password policy, your default domain password policy, and honestly, it's kind of limited. You don't get much of a choice. I mean, with the kind of things that are happening out there, I personally feel that it's barely okay, right? So what we did at Manage Engine is we made up this feature. It's called the Password Policy Enforcer, and what it does is it gives you a bunch of options to make your passwords stronger. Let me take you through a few of these, for example, right? Um, so to start with, the first are a few of the choices you might have already seen in your default domain password policy, like the minimum password length, special characters to include, or upper and lower case letters, number of numeric characters to include. Now, most of this you've seen in your password policy and you have set it up. Now, what makes this the next step for you to go to are the options that come after that, right? Now, listen to me when I read out these options and you will see why. So this one, the next one is an option that says password must begin with a letter, right? So you can make sure folks don't get up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the other weak passwords with that. The next one must contain at least one Unicode character. So you can make sure that these characters listed right here, their password must contain at least one of it. You can disallow palindrome passwords, passwords that read the words that read the same front to back and back to front. You can allow or disallow those passwords. Now, that brings us to the next side, which is even more interesting choice of features. You can disallow use of characters more than 2 times consecutively. So you can make sure that if someone sets a password like Daryl with the letter R repeated twice in it, you can make sure that you do not allow those kind of passwords. You can disallow use of 5 consecutive characters from your username. You know how we lean towards setting up a password related to the username? You cannot do that when this is in place. You can disallow 5 consecutive characters from your old password. You know how you pick up or want to set a password very close to the last one? Not happening with this route. Now, to the gem of the show, the next coming features, the next 2 features I'm talking about are very important and are the features that set this apart, right? You can disallow the use of dictionary words. You can make sure that your users do not have dictionary words in their passwords. How cool is that? Imagine you have this on and people cannot pick and choose words from the dictionary. Any words that's in the dictionary cannot be set as a password. This thing comes in with an inbuilt dictionary, but if you guys have your own dictionary, and trust me, I know the companies, a few companies using those. If you have your own dictionary or if you like to borrow other dictionaries, you very well can, and you can update it here, and it will make sure that any word in those dictionary is not kept as a password by your users. And then it gets even more interesting. It says disallow the use of these patterns, right? And you click on modify patterns and it gives you a drop or it gives you a box, an empty text box that you can type into. Now, you know how people set up or get by with very weak passwords like QWERTY or ADSF or 12345 or the name of the organization that they work for, things like that. With this pattern around, they cannot do that anymore. So what happens right now is if you already have certain passwords that you don't want your users to use, or if you have a certain words that you do not like your users to have, things like that, you can make sure that you can put all of them in here, and this tool will make sure that all those words are not used as your password. How cool is that? Right. So those are one of the things, interesting things that you can do about. And then if the user decides, and again, this is one of the other interesting options that we have. This everything put together might be a little too much for the user, right? So what we do is we tell the user, you set a password, you decide the length of the password, right? You set, say, a password of 12 characters. If you think that is strong enough, I let you pick the numbers. So pick on a number that you imagine is a safe length for a password, say 14 characters. Yeah. So when this option is included and you put in 14 characters here, and the password is at least 14 characters, then the user does not have to go through any of these complexity requirements. If the password, I'll repeat myself again to get the point across. If the password is, you decide the length here, is that many characters or more, then the user does not have to comply to any of these complexities. So the complexity requirements are overridden when this length is met, right? Now, you might think that all of this is good, but this only applies when the user comes on to Self-Service Plus and changes their password or resets their password. Yeah, that's a natural question to have. And you're correct. But what you can do is you can also make sure that this applies when the user does Control or Delete and changes their password. Or even from ADUC, you know how you go here into ADUC and you reset your password? You can even make sure that that restriction applies here. So imagine that you have this restriction or complexity set up, and this is the perfect choice of options that you have here. And you picked and chose the kind of complexity you want. You can not only have it here, but you can also have it applied on the ADUC screen, or even better, you can also have it apply when the user does Control or Delete and changes their password from their desktop or laptop. How awesome is that, right? Excuse me. So that's the password policy enforcer for you. It not only sets the bar high, and it makes sure that everybody who sets the password across everything. I mean, if you have so like we talked about, say if you have password sync enabled, right? And you have your Office 365 or your ServiceNow or your other tools integrated with ADSelfService Plus. Now you don't have to worry about a thing, right? You already have set this requirement, and that is the kind of password that will be set for everything that's integrated with ADSelfService Plus. So with this, just this one click of enforcing the custom password policy, everything that is associated with ADSelfService Plus is protected with a strong password. So that's what that we just saw. Now, here's another interesting thing. You can granularly enforce them for a specific OU or group. You might have different organizational structures in your, different organizational units in your organization. Like say, for example, if we had to show you this right here, right? So what I've tried to do here is to mimic an organizational structure that you would find everywhere else. And there are three OUs here, one for the admin folks, one for the finance folks, and one for the HR. Now you can make sure that a different, based on the policy that you have selected here, different policies or different complexity requirement are set for different folks in the organization. For example, your finance team here is one of the most sensitive fields in an organization, a sensitive department in your organization. So for organizations that are sensitive, you can make sure that you set complex requirements for a password. And for others, for other users, like say for the administrators or for any other organizational units in your organization, you can make sure that you can relax a little bit on the complexity requirements. So all you have to do for that to happen is create a policy for create dedicated policy for these folks, and then set different complexity for different password, different policies that you have. It is as easy as that. So right now I have just one policy available here, and I've chosen this for that policy. Now, for instance, if I had to, or if I decide to make another policy, let's say for the demo, and then I select, I will go back to my OU here. There it is. And I'm going to say, I'm going to make a tough password for these HR or for the finance team. Let's take the finance team. Let's say you make a policy for them. Let's say finance. Now you have a policy, right? Now you go back to the policy, password policy enforcer, and that policy is listed here. So when you choose finance and you enable the custom password policy enforcer, all these requirements that you set apply for the users in finance. If that's, let's imagine that's the only OU or the only team in your organization that needs additional security. You can just select them and make sure only folks in that particular department get a higher sense of security with their passwords. And for regular users, you can relax or set a considerably less complexity requirement than the rest of the finance team. So you can achieve that too with ADSelfService Plus. Now, I'm going to say, how many of you have gone to change a password, right? And typed in a new password, and the computer has come back and told you this doesn't meet our policy and we cannot set this password. How many of you has that happened to? I assume everybody has gone through that. Peter says definitely me. Peter, me too. So let me tell you what happens when you use this password policy enforcer, right? I'm going to show you. So selected it. I've set myself a certain. All right. I've set myself a certain complexity requirements, and this is what I want, right? Now, let me go do Control Alt Delete. I think this is, all right, I'm going to try and do Control Alt Delete. All right, so I hope the screen is familiar. You click on Change Password. Look at this. This is what I wanted to show you, Peter. Everything that you set as the complexity requirement back in the policy, the password policy enforcer is listed here. So everything that you choose is listed here. Now, when the user gets here and looks at this, he has or he knows what is exactly expected of them. And what he needs to do is just start typing in the password. I'll show you how this works. Okay, I'm going to type in a new password and pay attention because a lot of things are going to happen and I don't want you guys to miss anything. Now, as I start typing, you should see that each of these complexity requirements will be ticked off if they are met. Watch this. You see how as I start typing, it checks the requirement that are met. It makes it that much easier for the user. It tells him what exactly he's doing, the kind of requirements he's already met, and what is yet to meet. Now, let's say the user skips all that, just doesn't notice it, and types in a password and hits enter. How about this? Look at this. You typed in a password. Let's say the person who was changing the password just didn't pay attention to the instructions down there and then just typed in a password and hit OK. Now it comes back and tells you you haven't met these requirements. Two things happened here. One is it told you what you're missing. It doesn't contain two special characters and there's supposed to be two in there. So that's one. And two, I had the dictionary words option enabled. And what it did is it told me, dude, you're using a word from the dictionary. This is that word and we don't like it. So with that enabled, it makes it that much easier for a user to set his or her password. It tells them what's expected, and then it goes one step further and tells you, even if you don't listen, it comes back and tells you you didn't meet exactly these requirements. How awesome is that? Now, not only here, even when you go on and say, you're trying to reset a password, you go here and then you try and do this, answer those questions and hit enter. Even here, when you're trying to reset your password, this tells you exactly what is wrong or what is expected of the user when he's setting up a password. See, everything is listed here, what is expected. And the same thing happens as I start typing, the things are met, the requirements are met, are checked off, and the requirements I haven't met so far stay blank. Isn't that a neat feature? So no matter where you go, or let's say you directly go to the ADUC and try and set the password. Even here, it works even here. How cool is that, right? I'll show you. So this is the same password I've tried to set. See? I mean, the message is, of course, from Windows or Microsoft Active Directory. So it is not going to be specific. This is your generic message. But again, it blocks you from setting weak passwords right from the word get go. This is where everything starts, right? This is where you start the trend of setting a password. So it blocks you right here and doesn't let a weak password through, right? So I mean, working or setting a strong password in the portal itself, in the AD self-service portal, is one thing, but pushing those limits and making this possible when you do Control Alt Delete, telling you what exactly the requirement is, and then pushing it even further and hitting even Active Directory and stopping you right there, setting a weak password. I think it's something that you should look up to, or something everybody should have. At least somebody who cares about security will definitely be interested in this. So I'm not saying, again, with that, I'm not saying go for ADSelfService Plus or the weak tool, the weak password finder. All I want your takeaway to be from here is to make sure that you just to know that all this that I showed you is possible, and to make sure that you have a tool that can meet these requirements. Don't let your security be compromised. Always have something. This is possible. I just showed you. So always have yourself covered and make sure that you have a tool that can get this done for you, which I just showed you is possible. So think about it. Make a good choice. I'm pretty sure that you would. So with that, I want to do a quick recap. Right. So we started with eliminating weak passwords from your domain, right? And then we talked a little bit about the password policy enforcer. I told you the kind of features that it has and then what you can do about it. I showed you how you can have different policies for different folks in your Active Directory environment, and how you can have different complexity for different folks of people. And then we pushed it further, and then we saw how you can make this custom password policy work for you, not only from the AD self-service portal, but also from the ADUC console, from where everything starts, or for the users, the Control Alt Delete screen, where majority of the password changes happen. And not only that, when this is in place, everything that's associated with your AD account, your on-prem or your cloud applications that you have, everything of that is covered. So you start with a simple tick in the AD self-service password policy enforcer, and that in turn protects everything that is associated with AD self-service plus. And then we finally looked at how you can and how these custom password policy messages or the requirements that you set up can be displayed not only on the reset and change password screen, but also on the ADUC, or not the ADUC, the control or delete screen. So with that, we'll be taking questions now. If you guys have any questions, now would be the right time to ask. Okay, we have questions coming in. All right, so Peter, my favorite is back. What is he asking? How does Gina client work? Right. So let me show you. I'm not sure I got into that really, but yeah, Peter, I would love to show you how this works. Right. So Peter, the purpose of that Gina tool right there, it comes with our professional edition. The purpose of that is, um, let's say you're coming back from a long weekend, right? And like the majority of the people, you do not remember what your password is. And what this does is it helps you reset your password, or if you've put in too many passwords and locked yourself out, it helps you reset or unlock your account right from the login screen. So this is what that looks like. You see where it says reset password and unlock account. That's the Gina portal. So that's the Gina client I've been talking about. Click on it, and it gives you the option to reset and unlock your account. So if you want to reset, you click on reset. It will ask you for your username. You put in the username, hit continue, and then it would kick in that multi-factor authentication things that you have set up, and then you will have to answer these. When you do and hit continue, it will give you the option to reset your password right here from the lock screen. And it will, in the meanwhile, if you have the password policy enforcer applied, it will even list you the requirements that's expected out of you. I hope I answered your questions there, Peter. If you have further questions, please ask away. Gregory says, thank you for the presentation. Happy to help, Greg. And Peter, is Gina client needed for the password policy enforcer? Yes, Peter, it is, because you know how these requirements were listed? To do the listing, we need to have the Gina client in there. That's one of the requirements or the mandates. Any other questions, guys? Keep them coming. Come on. Okay, Bikal Nak says, how about for the newly created accounts? Well, this we got you covered there as well, Bikal. So what happens is there is an option in right here in ADSelfService Plus. When you go into multi-factor authentication, so for that, the authentication method should only be verification code through to email. This should be selected, and when this is selected, and mind you, because this should be just the verification code to the email. And this is selected, and when even a new user logs in, it does something called the enrollment. The enrollment happens automatically. It just verifies the user email, and as long as the user has an email address in Active Directory, it will also work for the newly created users as well. So we have you covered there as well, because no worries. Happy to help, because thank you. All right, Peter's come back and he's asking, have you heard of the issues with the Gina client and .1x environments? I tried to get this set up to test computer in my network, and the Gina kept tripping the .1x. Peter, answer me this. What does the .1x application do? What is it exactly? Or instead of making you type all that, tell you what, sometimes when you have the Gina client on, it might have sort of an imbalance with the other application. Yeah, there it is. So it's an authentication protocol on network switch server. So yeah, coming back to what I was saying, sometimes it might have an imbalance when there are multiple tools that deal with authentication or otherwise. And we have ways to tackle those. I mean, we can go back into the registry, make a few changes, and make sure that these both these applications can coexist. The Gina client and the .1x should be able to coexist without any trouble. So here's what I would do, Peter. I'd request you to drop me an email with as much information as you can about what you're trying to do. The first one is my personal email, and the bottom one is our excellent support team that we have for ADSelfService Plus. Pick an email and drop an email explaining your issue, and we'll be happy to set up a call or a remote session and make sure that these can coexist. So that should not be a problem. All right. So Peter or everybody or anybody else, any more questions? Bikal says very good presentation. Bikal, thank you so much. I have one more request for you guys. Jared says, no, thank you for your time. Jared, thank you for your time as well. So with that, guys, that brings us to the end of the presentation. But there is one more thing that I would request you to do. We would love to hear on how we did today. And if you have any more tips on what we can do better, what you would like to see in the upcoming seminars or the webinars or the workshop that we have coming up, do take the survey. And in the feedback, there's a feedback form coming right up. And then in the feedback form, there's a place where you can mention what we can do better and what are the things that you would like to see in the upcoming webinars. Do take it. Let us know how we did and what you would like to see in the future presentations. So I guess that concludes it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for accommodating us into your schedule today. With that, it's Sri signing off from the ADSelfService Plus team. Thank you. Over and out.